So what we'd like you to do now is we'd like you to do two things in the chat box. First of all, we'd like you to give us some reflections on the conversations that you had in your breakout rooms and give us an idea of the kind of things you were talking about when you were answering your questions, what made you think differently. And what we'd also like you to do is post some questions in the chat box for Amy about questions that you'd like to ask her specifically. So we've got a question here that we thought we'd start with from Tibbs. And it says, hello, what are the critical success factors in implementing psychological safety in a healthcare setting? And have you seen psychological safety used when engaging patients? So Amy, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, let me take the first one because I think one implication, the real question to me becomes, what are the conditions under which the kinds of interpersonal behaviors, especially at the front lines of care, are more able to happen and more likely to happen? And the first thing we sort of wonder about is how important is senior leadership, right? How important is the person at the top? Like, do you need a Gary Kaplan? And the answer is sort of yes and no, right? Having a Gary Kaplan is a huge advantage because he or she is consistently sending the right message, right? They're behaving in consistent ways and they're routinely just sending a message that helps the rest of us reorient our thinking in a productive way. So let's just start with, sort of the passionate, committed leadership at the top to these issues is helpful. But here are some of the features that really characterize, I think, the successful initiatives. One, focus on the work, right? Focus on performance, focus on patient safety and quality of care, not on psychological safety. And psychological safety, again, it's a sort of a means to an end. So keeping the focus on what it is that we have to do together and why that's challenging and important, oddly helps bring the right learning environment along with it. Giving people opportunities to practice in the context of real work. Having some opportunities for growth and development, leadership development, interpersonal skills development, but quickly and totally tied to the real work. So it doesn't feel offline, off-site, a different activity. And helping people, sort of flagging the progress you're making by using some of the new skills, like making those links explicit. Those are some of the things that we have seen along the way. And in terms of patients, I believe that the exact same set of behaviors, sort of framing, inviting, and productive response can and should be used with patients as well. If you want patients to feel safe voicing their concerns, their observations, in some of my research, I have noticed where oftentimes it's a patient who says, hold on, is that for me? That's not my name, right? And you know this, right? You've been on wards long enough, these kinds of things happen. So inviting patients who are alert and awake into the discussion is a valuable thing.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. There's so much in that answer, I kind of wanted to start taking notes. Fantastic. Having a look at some of the questions that are coming up in response to some of the points that you've made there, and there's quite a few people asking about how can we start working on introducing psychological safety into a new group. Some people asking if you don't have an authoritative role or if you're a junior, how do we start introducing this into a group of people that aren't familiar with that? So any thoughts on that?
Sure. And I also saw that Amy had asked a question, maybe it's because it's Amy, it popped into my brain, but about the NICU, and I realized I didn't make explicit that in a sense that formula, framing the work, inviting engagement, responding productively, I originally got from that study. So we had developed a measure called inclusive leadership, and that in a nutshell, inclusive leaders are those who recognize fallibility, their own and others. They point it out so that they, sort of like, I'll need to hear from you. They might say things like, I might miss something. I need to hear from you, right? And they are, they ask, hey, you were on last night. What did you see? How did such and such patient do? And finally, they're always responding in a kind of productive way. So it turned out this very simple variable. We measured it with 3 survey items. I won't be able to rattle them off the top of my head. We called it inclusive leadership. It was published in the Journal of Organizational Behavior, I think. I might have that wrong because there's 2 papers I did around the same time. But I'm happy the citations at the bottom of the slide. But it was such a simple variable, and it literally moderated, right? It made the difference between role mattering for psychological safety and role not mattering. Just those simple leadership behaviors at the front lines, really.
Yeah.
But sorry, so the other question, now I just lost it with that long-winded answer.
No, so we've got 2 minutes really before we have to close up. So this question is about if you're trying to bring...
So it's the same answer, actually, right? Because the things I described as crucial leadership behaviors do not belong to leaders alone, right? Leader is a role, leadership is a behavior, and it's a behavior that exerts a positive influence on others. Each and every person in your organization can exercise leadership. They can frame the work, with humility about what we're up against, in a positive way. They can invite others' thoughts, and in that way, when they're doing that, they are conveying that they respect and are interested in the other's thoughts. And when others' thoughts are invited, they'll speak up. And then they can respond in a productive way, like, okay, how can I help? What do we do next? What might work? Thank you for telling me, etc.
So modeling those behaviors.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
The things we'd like Mary Kaplan to do are the same as the things we'd like the frontline caregivers.
For sure, they're all behaviors the whole way through, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Amy, that's fantastic. And what a wonderful way to finish, with some great advice for everybody there, that it's not just the leader's job, it's everybody's job. And I think between us all here today, we could talk with you for hours and hours and hours, but we're going to have to let you go. And thank you again so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
A wonderful session on behalf of everybody here.
That's very nice. What a thrill. Excellent. Thank you. Love the exclamations. Isn't that great? Wow. Loved it. Thank you. Of course,
if you're feeling all the love.
Very nice. Very, very nice to see. Thank you.
Yes. Thoroughly well deserved, as far as I can see.
Awesome.
Oh, and then
well, thank you both very much. That was a very easy session for me. Very.
Good. Well, once we